I'm Slava Silva. Welcome to Conversations with Slava. Today, I'm talking to Andrew Feinstein, former MP for the African National Congress, author of the books After the Party, A Personal and Political Journey Inside the ANC, and Shadow World, Inside the Global Arms Trade, co-founder of Shadow World Investigations. You have spoken about the so-called labor anti-Semitism crisis. Could you please address the treatment of anti-Zionists and socialists in the Labour Party?
Thanks, Slava. It's very good to be with you. This is an issue that is of great concern to me. I obviously, as a white person growing up in apartheid South Africa, I was on the privileged side of a very racist divide. And I decided in my teens to join the African National Congress, the liberation movement trying to overthrow apartheid in South Africa, the party of Nelson Mandela. And racism has always been a very important issue to me. That was only more the case because my mother, who was from Vienna in Austria, was herself a Holocaust survivor. She survived the war in Vienna itself, spending 3.5 years hidden in a coal cellar. She lost 39 members of her family in the Holocaust, mainly in Auschwitz and Theresienstadt. And I have always been very focused as a consequence of issues of anti-racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and have actually written about genocide prevention and lectured on genocide prevention at Auschwitz itself on behalf of the Auschwitz Institute. And I became very concerned when I saw within the British Labour Party, which is quite divided between a sort of a more conservative wing and a more left-wing wing, if you will, a more progressive wing, that the issue of anti-Semitism started to be used against the former leader of the party, Jeremy Corbyn, who himself is a lifelong anti-racist. He was a big supporter of the struggle against apartheid. He is a big supporter of the Palestinian people and is very critical of Israel, as am I. And when people started to accuse other people within the Labour Party of being anti-Semitic in most instances, not in every instance, but in most instances on very spurious grounds, I became very concerned by this and started weighing in, because I think that when anti-Semitism is used where it might not exist, like Jeremy Corbyn is by no means an anti-Semite. There is no evidence whatsoever of him being an anti-Semite. And to accuse someone like that of anti-Semitism, to effectively try and replace them as party leader, I think actually undermines the fight against the very real struggle against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, and all racism. And what has concerned me even more is how progressive, anti-racist Jews who support Jeremy Corbyn have been treated within the Labour Party. It's as though these sorts of Jews don't exist, that all Jews are of one opinion and one mind, which is an absurdity because it's a very diverse and broad community. And in fact, there has been a vilification of left-wing Jews in the Labour Party who support Jeremy Corbyn. So in my own case, to give you an example, I was posting online on social media in support of Corbyn, and I was very heavily criticized for this online. So I then started posting a bit more about my background and my family's background to try and explain why I have the views I have. And when I did that, I received messages, for instance, from two rabbis, one in the United Kingdom, one in the United States, saying, oh, your mother must have been a capo, a Nazi collaborator, which is really the worst thing that you can say to a Jew, let alone to a Holocaust survivor. And that has been the sort of nature and the tenor of the way in which progressive Jews have been attacked and vilified within the Labour Party. In addition to which, the new leadership of the Labour Party, which is a more conservative leadership than Jeremy Corbyn's, have stopped branches of the Labour Party from discussing the issue at all, from discussing the suspension of Jeremy Corbyn. They've really closed down democracy. They've closed down what is effectively, or should be effectively, a space for discussing all political issues, including Israel's very brutal and illegal occupation of Palestine. So it's been a very, very strange experience for me as a progressive Jew being in the Labour Party at this time.
How do you assess the direction the party is currently taken under Keir Starmer? Do you see a possible change at some point?
I see a huge change in the leadership from Jeremy Corbyn to Keir Starmer. Corbyn was almost an anomaly in British politics generally, in that he is what we would describe as an internationalist. He believes, for instance, that Britain should not be involving itself in conflicts around the world, in the Middle East and elsewhere. He believes that Britain shouldn't be selling weapons, which is my area of expertise, shouldn't be selling weapons to undemocratic authoritarian regimes, particularly regimes like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Israel, but also his leadership of the Labour Party was about giving power to the members of the party. And the membership of the party grew hugely under his leadership by hundreds of thousands of members, so that it became the largest membership party in Europe. Under Keir Starmer, he really is not interested in the membership and has been drawing back, I believe, on democracy and freedom of speech within the party, and has been trying to turn the party into a much more mainstream party, very supportive, for instance, of Britain's involvement in various conflicts around the world, in the so-called war on terror, very in favor of British arms sales to whomsoever, which is extraordinary given that Keir Starmer trained as a human rights lawyer. But even on domestic issues, Labour Party members of Parliament have been told to abstain, in other words, not to vote against some very reactionary legislation in the British Parliament, legislation around the secrecy of illegal actions by the intelligence services, by police services, and by the military in what is called the Spy Cops Bill, where he extraordinarily suggested that Labour should abstain on various issues relating to the welfare state, and even on the Brexit issue, where Keir Starmer was probably the loudest champion of staying within the EU. Now he wants to force Labour members of Parliament to vote for Boris Johnson's very bad Brexit deal. So we're seeing him doing 180-degree turns for what he claimed he would do when he was campaigning for the leadership. And it's a very different leadership to Jeremy Corbyn's. And I think as a consequence, I think Keir Starmer, as leader of the Labour Party, is already, in only a period of a few months, is under very, very intense pressure, because the Labour Party is not doing very well in the opinion polls. And Keir Starmer's own popularity has dropped by 50% in the time since he's been leader.